My name is David Steinwoodell. Hi, everybody. I'm a director of product management at Smule. I deal with our creation and singing experiences. And I've been with the company for about 5.5 years. DY.
And my name is David Young. I head up all of the production for our artist and brand partnerships that we do. So whenever you see the Sing with the Artist campaigns, or Sing with the Disney character, or with Fire Saga from Netflix, any of those, that's our team, combination of normal use of the app with kind of extra use cases and more experimental use cases. So one of the reasons I'm here right now is I've been in the trenches for the last few months. I've made styles in conjunction with Disney, with Netflix, a bunch of big artists. So we've been working with this tool for a while and have buy-in from some big partners, which is cool. This webinar is going to be twofold. One of which is going to be to kind of dive into Style Studio itself and show what is possible and maybe answer some questions that weren't super obvious with the existing tutorials and documentation we put out so far. And then also kind of give you all an idea of what the product plans are and how we are responding to a lot of the feedback that we've gotten so far. And that is where I'll pass it back to DS.
Thank you, DY. Do you want to start out? We got a lot of questions about the actual audio effects and the quality of the audio effects and how they work. Do you want to speak to those?
Yeah, I can start on that. And I guess something I should note that, my perspective on all of this comes from, I am like a music producer. That's what I've been doing. It's been my role within Smule, but also outside of it. So like the realm of audio is something I care deeply about. And so I'm pretty particular, especially when if and when we change anything audio-wise in the app. And for this exact instance, we actually didn't change anything. And so that's probably one of the more important things to get across on this. There are things the things that have changed are the context and some of the default settings and things of that nature, but all of the core audio effects are exactly as they were before this big update. There's a lot of differences just in, how things are set up and look slightly now, but behind the scenes, under the hood, it's all the exact same stuff.
Yeah, I think I can add on to that. We had a number of questions asking about sort of the reverb amount and reverb character labels. And I know a lot of our audience here is probably familiar with, like, Super Studio used to have two parameters called reverb and room size. Can you talk a little bit about how they might map to each other?
Yeah. So first and foremost, while it used to say room size, it's actually always meant a little bit more than that. And this is actually, this is kind of a general, a line that we have to walk in a lot of places in the app, but especially with this, where we want to be as accessible to as many music creators as possible. The company's mission is to allow people to come in and lower their inhibitions enough for them to actually perform music, which culturally is a big hurdle to jump over. So anything we can do to remove technical jargon and just unnecessary speed bumps and roadblocks, we try to do. And so this was somewhere where we are trying to unify the controls that are immediately available for these different audio filters. And so trying to move to the word character on a lot of different effects, so there's some unification when you're choosing whether it's hype or anything of that nature. We want character to kind of be, okay, how can I tweak how this sounds and how this feels in a significant way? Because really, when we're talking about Super Studio and character in that case, it's actually kind of, you can think of it as a macro control that's changing a lot of different things as you're sliding.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that if, like for Super Studio, the two sliders that were there before, reverb and room size, actually map one-to-one with the sliders that are there now, reverb amount and reverb character. So it is literally, we just changed the names on them.
Yeah.
And for any other audio filters that had sliders previously, the same is true.
And this is somewhere that, you know, obviously we know our audience of this webinar is definitely going to be on the more, you know, hardcore power user side of things. And we don't want to leave you guys high and dry at all. There's just a few places we're going to ask you to have to dig in a little bit deeper to do specific things, so we can make the immediate picture that people see that aren't familiar and don't know the deeper side, let them have an easier angle on it, and try to make the more powerful and, you know, power user-esque things just slightly more hidden in a way.
I think one more question that I see that was on the list was in the actual Smule app right now, in the new version, when you move that Super Studio slider, you only get sort of increments of 10. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's two things on this point. One is, which, again, like we said with all the other characteristics of, let's keep using Super Studio just to be consistent with our examples, where you put that slider is still the exact same. You know, it's still the same slider that you had before. The values it may be specifically reading out may be slightly different or have different decimal places than you may be used to, but that slider, nothing has really changed there. And then I think another thing that's just more of a general point, and I don't want this to sound too preachy, but it's very tempting in digital audio creation to try to look at a sound and judge it. But really, like, one of the reasons behind all of this in our thinking is we want to encourage people to listen to what parameters are doing, what is happening when I'm actually moving this slider and I'm singing. You know, we want that connection between, this is an audio effect that changes things. You know, don't just look at the number, like, fully understand what this is doing. And frankly, if you are, you know, moving it on a tiny screen from here to here, and you moved it slightly further to the right than you did on the last recording, like, is it really going to make the big difference in the grand scheme of your recording? Probably not. So I don't want it to be a thing that really anyone gets hung up on, and that's also why we're trying to slightly, you know, simplify it for users coming in. We want this to be understandable as, this is the character, this is how I'm going to slide it, but really just set it and forget it. You know, get it to a good place that sounds good, and get to the more fun parts, which are making music. That probably rounds it out for that section. So I see a few questions here that I can kind of pose to you that are a little bit more product oriented, as you are the man to ask. So what are, like, some future plans we're thinking of to, you know, kind of address the feedback that there aren't enough controls for anyone joining an open call / seed, or whatever you want to call it, but joining a duet?
Yeah, so I think the best way to address that is to just say that, you know, we have heard the feedback and we have heard the response, and I think realized that we went one step too far. And so we are putting the functionality to control your audio filter for your performance back for all users in all cases. So if you're starting a song, singing a solo, starting a duet, starting a group song, joining, you'll be able to override the audio filter package that's in the style, just with a single audio filter that you choose that will apply to your voice only. So that functionality is coming back, and that is the, my team is actually working on that as our top priority. I also want to say We actually just published a different fix yesterday, and so we did have some issues and some bugs with, let's call it cross-system joins, especially with some group performances where older joins or older opens would pick up the audio filter settings of the joiner. We pushed a fix for that yesterday. That's all on our back end. So if you have a performance that experienced that, you can write into support, let them know, just send them a link, and they should be able to trigger a, we call it a re-render on it, and that should fix up your performance in, I think we hit 99 or 99.5% of cases. And I'm sure that's been adding to a lot of the frustration and confusion about the change with styles.
Yeah, and I think we're hoping, that squashing that bug also, to go back to some of the earlier questions that were asked about audio quality in the Style Studio, some of that and the, the examples that were put out very early on of, things being broken and the audio being, worse, we're thinking a lot of that was all this one bug with this mismatch of people on different versions. And so the next few weeks should sound a lot cleaner on the whole. There are a few questions around the idea of, and this gets a little bit more into styles specifically, but ways we're thinking of organizing now that we're getting so many users creating so many styles and things of that nature. So if you want to, I don't know, speak to some of our thoughts down the line of how this might start to look.
Yeah, so there are a number of places that we want to surface this. So right now, when you're opening a song, you get that carousel that has up to 20 styles in it. And we really want to make sure, the spirit of styles and the idea behind it is that, somebody can spend a lot of time and really perfect a style. We almost think that we're going to have people in the community that will become style producers. And so we're adding the ability to go beyond that carousel and search for styles by user or by subject or category. That's why we have the ability to tag a style when you publish it right now. Also, over in the profile, being sure you can see those styles. And for the style producers, actually over in Style Studio, we have a couple new tabs coming. So right now, it's just really the core editing app. But on either side, pretty soon, you're gonna see appear a Discover page where you can see some of the more popular styles in the ecosystem and actually open those up and see how they're built. Really, we consider that the inspiration area, as well as what we call My Content. So a place where you can go to see all the styles you've made and get an idea of how popular they are, how often they're being used, and also if you want to delete one of your styles or you want to do a save as and use it as a jumping off point to continue editing.
Great. I've got a few piggyback questions on that. First of all, just trying to address a lot of the specific questions that came in. If you make a style, can anyone use that style?
Yes, they can.
And then I think kind of what you were just speaking to before that question, I think is a good segue to maybe just a little bit of an elaboration on the reasons for this big shift, the reasons we were choosing styles as a means of kind of changing up the look and feel of the app, and kind of what is the plan and the path forward.
Sure. So I think bringing that back to the mission of Smule, which is to allow people to connect through music and collaborate through music, and allow people to participate in music creation when they otherwise thought they couldn't have. And so in a lot of ways, a person's first experience with Smule and with experiencing that musical community is in the Smule app. And we want to make sure that it's fairly easy for them, The point of that app is to sing. and to express yourself and really focus on your performance right there. At the same time, we wanted to make sure that the power users, the longtime community members, have access and the ability to really express themselves in a very deep way. And that's what Style Studio is meant to accomplish. Right? We've taken all of our audio filter technology, plus a few new ones that are coming out soon, I'm really excited about. And all of the video filter technology and all of the mixing of the videos and the performances, and open that up to the community so that, you know, instead of those 5 video styles and 13 audio filters, you can mix and match to your heart's delight, and really create anything you want. And then have that available as a template for yourself to use, you know, going down the road. If you just if you just want something simple, black and white, super studio, hey, you can just make a real simple template or style and have that in your back pocket to use 90% of the time. But if you want to do something wild, it's there.
Yeah. So, you know, as you can kind of tell in his voice, you know, we are pretty excited about this because we're looking further in the future, but we also recognize at the same time, you know, there's no way this is going to be a perfectly smooth ride, and we want to make sure everyone comes along on the ride. So, you know, we're going to work through these initial bumps together. I mean, we launched a brand new app and a massive app update of another app at the same time. So we have all hands on deck right now, working through it and, you know, trying to address as much of the feedback as we possibly can. Which, you know, is probably a good segue to one of the areas that we had a lot of vocal feedback on, which basically a lot of things to do with group performances. I can go ahead and kind of address a few of the initial questions, and we can kind of ping pong it back and forth, DS. But one of the most common questions has kind of already been spoken to, but we can speak to it again. How can I change the effects in a group collaboration? Can different layers have different effects? And that's a similar answer in that that's something we're working towards now, you know, having basically a manual override that only affects a specific joiner's contribution of a single layer of a group, for instance. To have, you know, an override, you know, you are suggested to use whatever the style set out, because not only is it just a single, you know, audio effect starting place, you know, we've invested a lot to have, you know, dynamism and be able to have different effects in different musical sections of the song. And there's so much power within that. So we want to make sure that that's still first and foremost. But, you know, if you are, you know, a power user who knows exactly what you want to do and the exact effects you want to use on different layers, and it's not something that you could build into a style, there's an override that we're going to work in. So we make sure that there's always enough, you know, power and customization under the hood that you can get to.
Yeah, I'm seeing there's a question about the group performances and the boxes, right? And I wanted to address that. So the specific question has to do with the group performances. Now, a lot of the time, the video frame will just be divided up into sort of even boxes with all the different singers, as opposed to where, you know, we used to have sort of the different squares of different sizes that would animate between different things. For those of you who have been around for a while, you'll remember when we introduced video styles, those have never been available for group performances. And really, we kept looking at all these features that we were thinking about and wanting to put in and wanting to build. And groups have always been this completely distinct, separate thing that, right, we couldn't mesh together with everything else. And we wanted to be able to give more features to groups. And a lot of our roadmap in 2021, we're talking about groups and how we can make groups better. But we had to sort of bring that into the fold with the rest of our technology and it couldn't just be an island sitting out there. So that, you know, when we do something new, groups can have it, duets can have it, solos can have it. And so we did have to lose a little bit. And that's one of the things that we lost was, you know, being able to have those sort of animated transitions. But I really think that what you get now is there's a lot more different layouts you can choose from, a lot more different sort of visual effects that you can play with. And now that we have everything as sort of one unified core, right, we can start to build back up different features and different things like that that work not just for groups, but for all the different types of performances.
Yeah, you know, I guess, you know, maybe to tack onto that, I'll just, you know, do a quick, you know, screen share just so to make sure we all, from a group perspective, group performance perspective, see already what some of the layout possibilities are, and then I'll kind of talk about what the future may have in store for that. So I'm going to pull up this group performance, 4 different artists: Jason Derulo, Sofia Reyes, De La Ghetto, and Fran Silva. As you can see here, it defaulted to just straight side by side. And I guess as we start kind of diving into this, I think one of the things that we can already see is that if we had, you know, the old way of the box kind of moving and shifting over time, there's no way really any of these would work, because, you know, when we're talking about being able to control the layout in different sections, like it, you know, there's no way you could have done a fuzzy cut like this and, you know, show way more of everybody at once, and finding like the right way to do that rather than just static lines like has been the Smule experience for 5 years. And as you can see, there's already, you know, you have your basic layouts. So in some ways you can kind of use the existing things to simulate how the previous group video display experience happened, because you could have your checkerboard in the verse and then it would switch to a fuzzy, you know, with side by side in the chorus. You can start to think of ways that would work. And as you can see, there are, you know, a lot more hardcore ways that are coming out. And so just know that this selection here is just the beginning. You know, we have a lot of different ones in development, and the whole idea with Style Studio here is, I mean, this is version 1.0. You know, there's a lot more in the tank coming. So we want to make sure that, you know, yes, initially we had to kind of change the experience slightly visually, but you can see that there's just going to be a huge number of possibilities going forward from here.
Hey, David, I've seen a lot of questions, and it seems like people are not necessarily sure about whether they're going to be shown on screen the whole time or only when they sing. And I wonder if you can show people how the control for that works.
Sure. So there's some interesting kind of dynamism throughout the whole Style Studio app on that. One of the places, you know, let's see if I'll scale this back to just checkerboard. Actually, let's do fuzzy cut. We've kind of, you know, we didn't super expose it. We wanted to make sure it was included. So whenever there's a transition, so let's just do a curtain open just so we have something in there. We go and we edit this transition. There's also a way to show all performers or not. And as you can see now, okay, there's 1, there's 2. So this will generally react to audio data as well as a few other different things, the way you're used to a group performance automatically setting itself. So this little, you know, setting right here does a lot. And this is, you know, to give you a glimpse into what our team does day in, day out. This is how we've always had it set up, so that when we're working with a partner artist performance, they're always on screen the entire time versus the normal behavior of the app. And that's always been a thing we do for artists, because, you know, their image and their being part of it has always been such a big deal that we wanted them to always be on screen. So we're now unlocking that, which used to be an internal only tool, and now that's available to everyone. And so you could go segment by segment here and say, okay, you know, in the intro, yeah, let's show everybody in the intro. But when we dive in and we're in the verse, let's do, you know, let's set that, and then go back to transitions and then say, you know, let's not show everybody in the verse. Let's kind of switch between different people. And now you have some interesting stuff like that where it goes between tiling. And so there's a lot of power just within that single setting.
Hey David, can I make one more request, please?
Oh, of course.
Can you show my favorite layout, which is the globe, and just how much customization is in there?
Of course. All right, so I like on globe more than over globe. So not only can you get the globe and you'll see each of the performers based on their GPS data. So if you have someone there in Indonesia and now, okay, there's someone in Australia, and okay, you can see it's trying to do that while I'm setting this other stuff. So let's quickly, yeah, let's make a red continent. And I think it'd be cool to have green oceans. Yeah, this is kind of Halloween-y. But you know, there's the rim color, which we can set to nothing, and kind of, so there's a lot of ways you can make the globe look interesting. And as you've already seen in some of the creative styles that the community's already made, the globes made a lot of appearances.
I'm taking a look through here at our other questions. I want to see if there's anything that we missed. There's one question: is there a way to hear myself with the setting I like before having to correct it after I sing? And so I can take this one. I think when we put that override back, right, the audio filter override we've been talking about, you'll be able to pick whatever you want. I do think there is one instance that will come a little bit later. So if you're joining an audio OC, the app will actually sort of rocket you through we call it the pre-singing screen, where if you're joining a video OC, right, we stop you at that pre-singing screen and you can set up your filters and things there. And so we do also plan to put back the ability to change your audio filters in the actual recording screen as well. And so if we rocket you through that screen, you can pause after the song starts and then select your override and adjust exactly how you sound.
When can we expect an Android version of Style Studio?
It is coming. We are working on it. Android has always been a bit slower for development purposes, but rest assured it is well underway. I cannot promise a specific time though.
Have we changed the maximum layers or joiners that can be in a performance?
It's still pretty massive. We haven't changed any of that.
So I think maybe one point of confusion is just around the only seeing 9 tiles in Style Studio for some of the video layouts by default. Can you speak to that?
Sure. So that was something we brought over actually from the way that group performances were set up in the past, is that we never showed more than 9 videos or 9 people on screen at the same time. And so we just kept that as our maximum limit for the number of people who are on screen. But the logic for who is actually displayed on screen has not changed. So you can think of it as there are up to 9 windows, and different performers will get put into those windows, and it's still based on who is singing. So if that control that DY showed, that said show all performers or don't show, spotlight whoever's singing. If you put that over to spotlight the singer, you should get the same people appearing in the windows that you would have, a month ago.
And if you don't set it that way, that may be a point of confusion, that it will pick 9, a maximum of 9 performances, and that will be slightly more arbitrary. So this show all performer setting, do we have to do it per segment, or can we do it uniformly across a song?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now, you have to do it per segment. We have on the roadmap the ability to sort of do it over in that global segment. That's another point that I think is worth making, is that first column, I think it's sort of white or a little off-white, we call it the global segment. And so if you put something in there, it will apply to all the other segments until you go to a different segment and actually put something in there. So in that way, we made it real easy. Like I said before, if you're just like, I want black and white and super studio, just put them in that global segment, save your style, and you're done.
Got it. So I think, and I can answer part of this next one and let you answer part as well. But there's a few questions that have come in during this presentation that are kind of around the precision and the accuracy and the truthfulness of the song form that, a given song that you choose and a recording of that song displays in Style Studio. So one thing I will say to that is, our efforts have been both manual and algorithmic to try to get as much of the massive millions and millions of songs we have in the songbook to have some of this data. So a few of the questions were, okay, I want specific timestamps for specific sections. I would recommend in those sections to actually create a new arrangement and upload a new arrangement. And you'll have an option after you've set lyrics timing and singer 1, singer 2 designations. There is a place in the song upload tool on the web now that you actually set manually your own song form. So if you have a very specific idea of what you want, I think that's probably your best bet.
Yeah, you can also, if you've uploaded songs in the past, you can actually go back to the web and edit those songs to add the segmentation any way you want. You'll find that, right, if you have an old song, our algorithm has filled in some form of it, and it's probably not correct. It's a very difficult problem to do on millions and millions of songs across really a global genre or global set of genres. But it's there. You just go in and say, sort of edit lyrics and timing, and you can get through to the end, and you'll be able to set the segmentation. It is imprecise now. We only allow you to set it per lyric line. And we do have a feature that we're working on where we want to let you split a line, right? Because I know a lot of the time, like a vocal pickup, right? The segment will divide, right? You'll get 2 or 3 words and then a segment break, all in the same lyric line.
I don't want to skip over what has been one of the most important bits of feedback, so let's make sure we address privacy concerns. Obviously, this is a big deal. We want to make sure we do right by everybody. So, DS and I both have different angles of this that we can speak to. The first that I will speak to is just coming from the perspective of creating a style. It's very challenging to create a style for a song if you aren't able to use a recording of that song to work with in Style Studio. And this was kind of one of our biggest battles in kind of designing the whole system, is how do we allow people to preview as many songs as possible when they're building their styles. And really the only way to do that is to say, okay, well, if there's a public performance that exists on Smule, allow that to be opened, because you can go and view it, on the web, in the app, a myriad of different ways. So that was kind of our solution to that problem. We do recognize that there are some instances where removing some of the audio and video effects that were specifically chosen by a given user could, in some ways, for lack of a better word, expose, what the elements of the performance were without those effects, and that might not be an ideal scenario for that user. So we are very, we are looking at all the feedback and very open to what different solutions people might have in mind, because there's this, big balancing act between, we absolutely want to respect privacy. We would never have anyone's private performance or anything like that openable, and we would never allow Style Studio to retroactively, affect any of these other performances. I think that's one thing we want to make absolutely clear, is this all only exists as a temporary thing in Style Studio, only during the session that you're making that style. The only thing that ever gets saved is the style itself. The original performance, completely unaffected. But yeah, you want to elaborate further, DS?
Yeah, DY, I think you actually really nailed a lot of the points. Is, we wanted to make it easy, since the styles are all based on the song structure, right? We wanted to find an easy way so that when you're making a style, you could say, what does it look like on Oops, I Did It Again? And what does it look like with Toxic? And what does it sound like on this other song? And at the same time, we're trying to figure out, all right, how do we allow people to decide whether or not their performances can be used in Style Studio, balancing that with, we want to make sure that it's very easy to, find songs to test your styles against without having to actually sing every single one. And also balancing that with the fact that the majority of the performances in Smule are collaborations. So we do end up in the situation where, some performers in a performance are not going to want their content available, and some are. And so we just have to sort of work out all those kinks.
With addressing that question, is just know that that is a work in progress, and we hear you loud and clear. And if you have, we've tried to think of every scenario possible, but there's no replacement for the massive sample size that rolling out a product gives. So we're being legit when we say, if you have specific solutions that you think would work, send us the feedback.
Yeah, I believe there's actually a survey that will show up as you exit this webinar. So put them in there. We want to hear them. Eventually, can the segmentation be edited or set by people who did not upload the song? I don't have an answer for you. We have talked about allowing that to happen, and especially actually if you do that, actually incorporating that feedback into the overall segmentation of a song, just to improve the segmentation of everything. But we're still sort of figuring that out. And then another one, will users one day be able to create an OC from the Smule app and on playback have the option to go directly into styles instead of creating the style first and then sync? That's actually a really great idea, and something that we're also playing with. I think the challenge there is clarity in what you're doing in Style Studio. Right now it is, I do know it is a little confusing because you're working on a previous performance. It can look like a post-production app, even though it really is a pre-production app. And so doing that, I think, would be really fun for people, right, who are opening OCs, and allow you to be really, really creative with your OCs. And there's a lot of value to being able to do that in a post-production manner. We just have to make sure that it makes sense. The feature makes sense, but make sure that it makes sense in the context of the entire app and ecosystem.
And I think that speaks to a lot of, it's a constant battle, and not one that we dislike, but we are charting new ground here. We're the only music company that's targeting creating apps to allow anyone to create music together, and trying to make that as simple as possible. And when we have a roadmap for what these features can become, and realize that we have to make some significant changes, even if some of it's under the hood, or if some of it's, you know, kind of the UI of the app. You know, these are not easy decisions to make, but I think, you know, we have a grand, you know, kind of a grand roadmap that we're trying to get to, and we're super excited about it. And so just hope that you all can bear with us with some of the road bumps that are going to happen, you know, throughout. But we're here to listen and try to make this as good as we possibly could. Do you need an actual video when creating a style?
No, you don't actually. So audio performances will show up in Style Studio. If you load up a performance and you see, I think you'll see a generic profile picture in like a blue or pink background. That's what that is. So that either represents it's an audio performance, or if you actually load up your original OC, you'll see like yourself on one side and then that placeholder on the other side. And the reason being, you know, we want you to, 99% of the performances that come through are the collaborations. And so we want you to see what your style is going to look like when there are more than one people there.
Yep. And then one I can touch on a little bit. It's a little bit technical in the weeds, but I'm happy to get into it. The audio panning of group performances and of the different performances that make up a group. So yeah, before the panning used to follow the moving tiles, and to an extent, you know, we still try to tie the audio panning location in the stereo field to be representative of where a video is, you know, in the square. But there are limitations and places that we have to be careful not to cause audio-induced nausea, especially when you have pinwheels of videos and, you know, a lot more fluidity to the video effects and the layouts that are in Style Studio. So, you know, ultimately, we try to err on the side of subtlety because, frankly, most people aren't even going to notice the panning if we're being honest with ourselves, especially if they're listening on a phone without headphones, or if they're, you know, on the web with a laptop. So we don't want to get too hung up on the panning. You know, I think if you look at panning in popular music, it's had some different eras, and if you listen to stuff in the 50s that have the drums all the way on the right, and like the guitar all the way on the left, it's interesting, but there's a reason that people went to putting stuff mostly in the middle with just accenting things on the sides, and we're taking a similar approach with the subtlety that we're putting in our audio panning.
DY. I see another one that I can take. Where and how will you find styles that others create? There will be two main places that you can do that. The first one is in the Style Studio app, in an update that will be coming soon. I mentioned earlier, we're going to be introducing a Discover screen. The other place is in the Smule app when you open up a new song. So when you're opening up an OC or a solo, in the carousel of styles, a little magnifying glass, a little search icon is going to appear right off to the left. And you'll be able to open that up and really dive into a lot of styles. I think our first iteration is all sort of touch-based, and we have another iteration coming where you'll actually be able to search. So you can probably search for somebody's username to see what styles they've created. And also, we're going to start badging the styles in there with, right, there's the style icon, and then you'll actually see the profile picture of the creator as a little badge there. So being sure to give everybody credit for the styles that they create. In the past, people moved around and new people would show as the song progressed. Now it's stagnant at 9. That is not what should be happening. So if that is, if you can actually throw an example in your exit survey, right, we'll start taking a look at it. That might just be a bug or a hiccup that is happening for some reason. It could also be, I'd suggest trying, making sure you try a style with that show all performers set to off or spotlight. That should be replicating the behavior that you had before. And if it's not, we'll fix it.
Could we create a cheat sheet for converting the new nomenclature with the audio sliders? We can definitely do that. The only thing I would reiterate with it is they are the exact same, two that they were before. They just have different names. So there's not, if you remember what they were before, they are that, just with different names. But we can easily put together a cheat sheet if people want that. So that's no problem.
Yeah, and the values also are exactly the same. So if you put those two sliders at 50-50, it's exactly what they were before. If you move them up to 70-70, 37-22, it'll sound exactly the same.
And then I want to give a shout out just to a great idea. Can there be like a template song that just has all possible segments in it? We've thought about this, trying to code it into an existing song, but maybe it would make sense to kind of have it, almost a bit of a hack, some song that just says all segments or something like that. The battle with that is you'd have to have a performance that would somehow make sense with it. So, we'd have to use some existing piece of music, but I do think it's a great idea. So thanks for sending that over.
Yeah. And some way on a roadmap is some way to let you know that, hey, the song you're working on, it maybe is missing these 3 segments, and allow you to put content in there if you want to, even if there's not a part of a performance to go along with it.
Yeah. And that also kind of speaks back to the reason we want to have as many songs available to test a style on while you're making it as possible.
Would it be possible to have the default transition show performer instead of default to show all performers, more similar to the way Smule has functioned previously? I can take this, so I can tell you actually exactly why we made that change. And that is because we wanted in Style Studio, we wanted to create a very WYSIWYG experience, and really reinforce you're applying effects based on segmentation. And so when you open up the transition section, making sure that it showed that transition on the segment changes and didn't confuse it with anything else. We can go back and revisit that. Also, if it's possible that maybe that's just a setting for sort of how your styles default when you create a new one. I want show all performers on or off. I want, there's the override global effects. We have a very similar toggle down in the VFX section as well, which I suggest you play with because you can get really interesting results out of it. We also have another fun change coming, actually related to transitions. The transitions can be hard to preview, and we loop that segment that you're working in, which for a transition between segments doesn't really work because you can only see half my hand here. You can't see the whole thing. So we have an update coming soon that when you're actually working on transitions, we'll loop the transition point that you're going to be directly affecting, so you can see exactly how it's going to work.
And I'll tag on one thing, and that's just to, well, okay, you can tell me if I get this right, DS, but WYSIWYG is what you see is what you get, I believe is what it stands for. But
yes,
the concept of a user interface that literally you're interacting with what it will ultimately look like. It is not, you don't have to adjust things in code or, as few sliders as possible, try to make it, clear.
Yeah, and we try and make what you're doing in Smule as much as possible on both WYSIWYG and WYHIWYG. What you see and what you hear is what you get. And I know it's not perfect, but we are striving for it. Cool. Well, I think we are out of questions. I want to thank everybody for coming and listening to the two Davids ramble for a while. I hope that it was insightful for you and helpful for you. And we really do appreciate your contributions to the community and to the product. So please keep the feedback coming, right? We are listening. We do want to know, and we are incorporating it. So thank you very much.
Yep. What he said. No, thanks everyone for being here. This has been good. And I mean, these things are even just this exercise for us is good because it, makes us fully review the whole process one more time. And the more we can keep digging in, the better.
So look for that exit survey coming, I think, via email later today to you, and keep on singing.
All right. Thanks, y'all.